Hello all and welcome to this hands-on lab. In our lab today, we will learn how to create an AWS KMS custom key store. A couple of things to keep in mind before we proceed further ahead. Using AWS services leveraged in this lab might incur charges. Hence, ensure that you clean up all resources after completing this lab. Deleting some resources leveraged in this lab might take a few days. Hence, ensure that you delete them later without fail. Scenario for our lab today. One of your team members has provisioned an AWS CloudHSM cluster with 2 HSMs. You, being one of the team members, need to review this CloudHSM cluster that was provisioned, right? You need to review its configuration and check if anything is missing. After that, you need to go ahead and provision an AWS KMS custom key store for your project. And then once your key store has been provisioned, you need to test your custom key store by provisioning a CMK, leveraging your key store, right? So these are the 3 tasks that you have been assigned. Prerequisites for this hands-on lab is knowledge of AWS KMS, CloudHSM, and what is a custom key store. So in case you do not know what these services are all about, please refer to these tutorials. The URLs to these tutorials are on the screen. If you already know what these services are all about, you can continue further ahead. Reference URLs. Please refer to these 3 articles. A lot of commands that I'll be leveraging in this particular hands-on lab, right, are from these reference URLs, right? And they're really good. I would certainly recommend that you review through them or at least browse through them. And this last URL over here, it helps with any kind of troubleshooting, right? So if you get an error, etc., please refer to this particular URL. Pre-prep for a lab today. Now, I tried to kind of break this whole thing down into 2 labs, right? So the first lab that I had created was how to create and initialize and activate your AWS CloudHSM cluster. So ensure that you complete this lab before you start this one, right? The URL to this particular hands-on lab is right there. Now, in case you have not done that lab, right, then you need to ensure that you complete these steps mentioned right at the bottom. Remember, it's an or. So either you complete this lab, right, because I'll be picking up from here. If you're not doing that, then go ahead and complete the steps that I have mentioned below. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to provision, initialize, and activate an AWS CloudHSM cluster with 2 HSMs in it. Ensure that after you have done this, you keep the cluster's admin credentials, that is your CO credentials, handy, right? And along with that, you also need to keep your cluster's trust anchor certificate handy as well. Create an IAM user, right? Name HSM user with permissions to initialize the cluster, right? You've already had done that in this step, right? But ensure that those permissions are there. And also ensure that you associate this particular policy with this user. I'm basically, since this is a lab, I'm just giving it full access to Cloud HSM, right? And once you've created your IAM user, ensure that you copy its username, password, access key ID, and secret access key. Now, either you can use your own workstation or you can provision an T2 micro EC2 instance, right? And go ahead and configure this HSM user to use AWS CLI. So ensure that you complete these steps. If you don't know how to do these steps, just go ahead and complete this particular hands-on lab before you continue further ahead. So let's begin, right? So the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to review the current setup. And this, if you've already done the lab, right, the HSM lab earlier, you have already completed these steps, but I'm just going to review them real brief, right, over here. So you need to have 2 HSMs in 2 different availability zones. Both the HSM should be active, your cluster should be active, and you should have your trust anchor certificate, which is nothing else but customer ca.crt file. So let us go ahead and check that. So this is, let me clear this, ls minus l. If you see, my customer CSCRT is right there. This is my cluster. My cluster is active. It has 2 HSMs. And if I click, we can see the cluster details and both the HSMs right here at the bottom, right? And I have made some notes over here. So in my case, I'm using an EC2 instance. It has a public IP. This is my username, password, access key ID, secret access key. This is my cluster ID. And these are my IP addresses for both of my HSMs. And since my cluster is active, this is my admin password. My admin password is new password, right? So everything is right here. Okay, so we have completed these setup steps. Now my EC2 instance. So this is my EC2 instance, and my HSM user has been configured on this particular instance. And as I said, I have completed configuring my HSM user as well. So it is okay to go ahead and use the AWS CLI. So let's continue further ahead. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make changes to the HSM user so that it can basically go ahead and perform all of these actions on our custom key store. So let me go right there. IAM, and we will go ahead and change permissions for HSM user. So users, HSM user, and add permissions. I'm going to basically create an inline policy. Service is going to be KMS right there. Actions. So what actions do we need? We need describe custom key stores and update custom key store. So describe custom key store, update custom key store. And then we have disconnect. If you want disconnect as well, you can do disconnect custom key store. We are going to do connect custom key store, and of course, create custom key store right there. Okay, so we have selected a bunch of actions over here. Review policies. Okay, I'm going to give this KMS custom key store inline. Create policy. And let's see if the required changes were made. Let's just go and see the JSON. And yeah, all those actions have been assigned for the specific user. So we are good to go. Cancel. Okay, let's continue further ahead. So we need to ensure that both the HSMs are configured and connected to our Cloud HSM Management Utility or CMU. So if you remember, if you have done the lab, that we provisioned the first HSM and then later on I provisioned the second HSM. Now, whether you've done the lab or you've not done the lab, it doesn't matter, right? Before you continue further ahead, we just need to ensure that the current CMU is connected and configured for both the HSMs that have been provisioned. And for that, we will be using this particular command, right? So let me copy that command real quick. Okay, so it's right there. And then paste it here. And this is the IP address of my first HSM. So I'm going to copy that and paste it here. Right, and I'm Going to copy this command, come here, clear the screen, and execute. So it's getting clusters information from the server, and it has updated our management util. We will basically run the same command for the second HSM as well. So copy this command, again clear, paste this right there. Again, this should succeed. Okay, so it did succeed. So finally, we have configured and connected both of our HSMs to our CMU. So now let's start this utility and confirm if that is true, right? So I'm going to paste this command. So how do you know that both of these are connected? So it basically tells you, see, if you read over here, it tells you that it's connecting to both these IP addresses. And then it tells you that end-to-end encryption has been enabled on both. E2E is nothing else but end-to-end encryption is enabled on both server 0 and server 1. That means both of these servers or both the HSM modules are connected, right? And we are basically connected to Cloud HSM right now. Okay, so we have completed this step and this step. The next thing that we will do is we will go ahead and create a user called as KMS User. For that, we will need to log in into our Cloud HSM leveraging our admin credentials, right? So this is the command for that. So copy the command, and my admin password is new password. This is my password. Okay, so I'm going to replace the password right there and then copy the command. And paste it right here. And this will help us to log in using the admin credentials. So login has been successful, and ensure that it is successful on both the servers as you see on my screen, right? So you see that login success is on both the servers. This is important, okay? Because otherwise you will get user underscore not underscore found error after you create your KMS user, because it may not create that user on both the servers. And when you are trying to log in and authenticate, or when you're trying to create your custom key store, it will basically just throw up that error. So if you are getting that error at any given point of time, is because that particular KMS user is not present on both the HSM modules. Just go back and configure your management utility or CMU, and then ensure that that user is created on both the servers. Okay, so the next thing that we will do now over here is list users. So again, you see that it shows you users on server 0, right? So this is users on server 0, and these are users on server 1. So you see it's showing you users on both the servers. This is critical. That's why I'm saying that if you get that error, ensure that that particular user is present on both the servers. So we've completed these two steps, right? The next thing that we will do is we will basically go ahead and create this KMS user. And after that, we will again do list users to ensure that it is created on both the HSM servers or modules. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this particular command and paste it right here. Now, whatever password that you give, ensure that you remember it. Okay, so if you're like me, then give a password like KMS password, a simple password, and make a note of that. So I'm going to make a note of that password as well. So let's create a user, hit enter, say yes, and again, as it tells you over here, that create user was successful on both the servers. Let us double check that. So list users, and you see that KMS user is present on both the servers. Great. So we have completed this step right here. These two steps are done. We now need to log out of HSM. Now, every time you log in, right, especially with admin user or even KMS user, we will actually be logging in with KMS user as well, just to ensure that those credentials are working. Ensure that you log out. If you do not log out, then while you are creating your custom key store, that particular connection will fail. Okay, so if your connection is failing, just go back. I don't log in, log out, but ensure that you log out from HSM. Okay, a lot of people don't realize why they are getting that error because, like, oh, my credentials are right, everything is right, everything is great. Ensure that you log out. Okay, because if you don't log out, then it is not going to allow this custom key store to connect using this very same user. Okay, so ensure that you log out, especially if you get an error. That's one of the key reasons why you get an error. Okay, so let's now try and log in with KMS user. So we're going to copy this, paste this right here. This is a password, right? And I'm going to copy this particular command and paste it right there. But before that, I'm going to log out. Sorry, my bad. Log out HSM. Okay. Now I'm going to log in again with KMS user. So earlier I was logged in with admin user. Now we are going to log in with KMS user and its credentials just to ensure that it works. So again, it's a success. It got logged on both the servers. That means this user is present on both the servers. And let's just list users again. We are good. And now we are going to log out from HSM. Remember, that step is critical. Okay, so we have logged out from both the servers. So we have completed these steps. Now we will go ahead and create our custom key store using AWS CLI. So I'm going to copy my command. This is the command right there, right? This is the command. Copy the command, I'm going to paste it right here. And now we will have to give it a keystone name. So what name we will give? We will say KMS custom key store. I think that's a good name. Our cluster ID is right here. This is my cluster ID. So I'm going to copy my cluster ID. My KMS password. This is the key store password, right? So we have to give this particular password. So I'm going to give this password. And right there is my customer CSCRT file. So I'm going to copy this particular command. Go back. Basically, quit from CloudHSM. I'm going to clear the screen. And now we will paste this particular command. Hit enter. So our customer key store has now been created successfully. Let's copy this key store ID. Okay, so I'm going to copy it. I'm going to mention it here. So custom key store ID. That's my key store ID right there. So our key store has been created. And if you actually go back and you go to KMS right there, you should be able to see that particular key store. Okay, go to custom key stores. And this is our key store right there. It is created, but it is disconnected. So we still need to connect this particular key store to our cluster. So we completed this step. Let's move ahead. Now we will go ahead and connect our custom key store to our cluster. And this is the command for that. And it takes a while, so be patient. Okay, sometimes it takes 20-25 minutes. And if you want to see its status using CLI, then use this describe command, or you can also go to the console, okay, and check the cluster status from there as well. Once it is connected, the status will change to connected. And as I said, it generally takes up to 20-25 minutes. So just be patient. So let's copy the command. This is the command right here, right? So I'm going to copy this particular command and paste it right there. And my key store ID. This is my key store ID. Copy my key store ID. Replace it right there. Our command is ready. Let's execute it. So I'm going to clear the screen. Paste my command right here and hit enter. So it looks like it is connecting. Let's confirm that first from the console. So if I click on custom key stores right there, or maybe go to customer manage keys and then come back to custom key stores, you see the status has changed to connecting. Similarly, we can also execute the describe command and get the current status. Now it takes a while, right? So it's generally good to monitor it leveraging the console unless you are planning to execute this particular command multiple number of times. But I'm just going to show it to you so you know how this command works. This is a describe custom key store command, right? And we are going to clear the screen. We're going to paste it right there. And you will see that it is showing that the connection state is connecting. Now, you will have to run this multiple number of times, right, to check what this current status is. It takes about 20 minutes. So just keep on monitoring the console. That's the easiest way. Or maybe after 20-25 minutes, go ahead and execute the CLI command. So we have completed all of these steps. Now, right now, for this particular lab, right, we created the custom key store using AWS CLI. And our trust certificate and everything was on the same EC2 instance, or let's say if it was on your workstation or whatever the case may be. Let's say if that was not true, and after you provisioned your HSM cluster and you had to release all the resources, and maybe at a later date somebody else would possibly need that your trust certificate and other artifacts that you created to create your custom key store. And or maybe somebody wanted to create that custom key store using console, and your certificate is right now on your EC2 instance, right? Instead of using CLI, let's say I wanted to use the console, right? This particular note right there. Then what do you do? So the good practice is to basically copy all of your artifacts into an S3 bucket, right? Generally copy the whole directory, or at least copy the customer CSCRT, your trust anchor certificate, or your trust certificate, right? So generally what I do is I basically just go and copy this particular directory. But I wanted to show this to you that, hey, there's a way to do that. And now once you have everything in S3, then you can easily download the certificate, and go through that process leveraging AWS console. So let's see how we do this, right? I mean, this is not needed. I mean, a custom key store is anyways coming up, but I still wanted to show this because it's a critical step. A lot of people kind of, get lost, like, okay, now I'm on EC2. Now, how am I going to get all of this out from here? So this is how you get everything out from your, copy it in your S3 bucket, and then possibly go ahead and create your key store using AWS console, right? So let's go ahead and do this and see how this thing happens, right? While our key store is getting connected. So let's go to S3, and I'm going to create a bucket over there, and we'll give it a name. I'm going to use my cluster name over there. So let's create a bucket, and I'm going to say so and so, let's say info, right? And then just scroll down, create that bucket right there. Copy your bucket name, and I'm going to paste my bucket name right there, right? So what we did was we created an S3 bucket. Now we have to change the HSM users credentials. Now you can give only right credentials or the selected credentials just to ensure that this lab goes smoothly, right? And not to get any errors or issues. I'm just going to use a full access policy. This is not needed. This is only for this lab. It's the pre-existing policy. So just go ahead and associate that to HSM user. So let's go to services, IAM, users, HSM user, right? And here we will add permissions, existing policies. We are going to look for S3. This is S3. Next, add permissions, and we are golden. So we basically modified credentials or permissions for our HSM user. Now we will go ahead and copy. I'll first show you how to copy a single file or maybe even the entire directory. So this is the command to do that, right? This is the copy command. So I'm going to copy that particular command, right? Copy this particular command, and we will build a command right here, right? And our bucket name is cluster ID hyphen info. And I'm going to replace this bucket name with that. Now remember that this particular command is to copy a single file. Okay, so copy this, go back, clear the screen. Looks like it got uploaded. Let's verify that. Okay, so if we go back to your S3 bucket, you should be able to see your file right there. Similarly, if you want to copy all files, right, this is the command. Everything that's there in this directory, first just go and dump it, and then you can figure out if you want to keep it or not, right? So I'm going to again copy my cluster info, my S3 bucket name, and paste it right there. Copy this command, go back, clear the screen, and looks like it's copied everything that's there. If we go back, and if we can refresh this, okay, looks like it did not get refreshed yet. Okay, looks like it did upload everything for sure. Okay, so let's see what is happening. Yeah, there it is. It took a while for it to come back, but as you see, it copied everything into this bucket. Now, if you want to delete all this stuff, or the other thing that you can do is you can also use an include or an exclude filter while you're doing this copy. But if you want to just delete it, just go ahead and delete some of the objects or whatever you want to delete as well, right? But I just want to showcase this to you that this is how you go about copying everything to your bucket so that you have a copy, and if you need it in the future, you can always refer to it. Or if someone wants to create a custom key store using the AWS console instead of AWS CLI, you can do that. And for that, what we will need to do is we will need to go ahead and download that customer CA file, right? So let's say if I wanted to create this very same key store using my console, then I can basically come over here, download this file, right? So this file got downloaded. Now, if I go to KMS, and over here I go to custom key stores. Now this is still connecting. And remember that one custom key store can be connected to a CloudHSM cluster. You cannot have multiple custom key stores connected. But just to showcase to you, right? If you click on key store, let's say you give whatever name over here. Now, of course, I don't have any cluster right now that is available because the other key store is connecting. But let's say if you had to create this, and you can go over here, is there in my downloads right there, right? You give your password, whatever your password is, right? And then you go ahead and click on create. And just like how we created a key store leveraging AWS CLI, similarly, you can create your key store from AWS console, right? You have everything in your S3 bucket. Just download the file, choose your cluster, etc. Provide your KMS password, and once you click on create, you can basically go ahead and create your custom key store leveraging AWS console. I'm not going to create this anyways. I don't have a cluster, but this was more of FYI that, hey, how do you create a KMS custom key store using AWS console, especially when you have been leveraging CLI or another EC2 instance or your workstation to kind of, create your cert, etc. Okay, so I'm going to cancel this. And okay, it's still connecting. So let's see, I'm going to even execute clear and then execute describe custom key store. Well, it's still connecting. Okay, so we have basically completed all of these steps. This is not required. This was more of FYI. And once our custom key store is connected, then we will go ahead and create a customer managed key. Now, one thing to keep in mind, if you create the customer managed key, okay, you will be able to delete your custom key store after your customer managed key has been deleted. So remember in the beginning, I mentioned that some of the resources may not be deleted or may take some days to delete. This is one of those instances where it can happen. So if you want to practice it, just go all the way to the end, see what all, parameters, etc. are necessary, right? But if you provision the CMK, then you can go ahead and delete the CMK. Again, it will have some deletion time, etc. But you will be able to delete your custom key store only after your CMK has been deleted. So whatever is the retention period, 7 days or whatever that you took, right? You mentioned while you were creating the CMK, you'll have to wait for those main number of days to delete your custom key store. So if you don't want to keep your custom key store around, simple, don't create the CMK, just cancel it at the last step. Okay, and that is generally advisable as well, because you just don't want to spend money, especially because you're just practicing. Okay, let's see if this thing got connected. It's still connecting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video for a little bit and I'll come back once the connection state has changed to connected. So our cluster has finally connected to our custom key store right there. So you see the status of custom key store has changed to connected, right? And if we go back and run this CLI command, you will see that the custom key store state has changed to connected. So our cluster and a custom key store are connected with each other. Now what we can do is we can go ahead and create our CMK in our custom key store. As I mentioned, be careful, okay? You will only be able to delete your custom key store once your CMK has been deleted. And I'll show you exactly, what error it gives. But anyways, let's go ahead, go to customer manage keys, create a key, symmetric, custom key store, next. And here we will select our key store. Next, you can give a name, temp, key, right? If you want to give any names, etc., tags, uh, key administrator, next, another account over here for key usage permissions, next, and this is the final step, right? Everything over here. Before you click finish, be careful because once this is created, there will be a retention period and the key will only be deleted after the retention period is over, and you will be able to delete your custom key store after this key has been deleted. Okay, so till that time, that custom key store is going to hang around. So the wise thing to do is to cancel this, right? And let me show you something. This console key store with customer store ID ending with 7838, right? So this is currently disconnected as you see, but if I try to delete this, it will tell me that it cannot delete this particular key store. And the reason behind it being is I had created a CMK, if you see over here, right? This CMK right there, you see that it has a custom key store ID 7838, and this is currently pending deletion. So once this particular CMK has been deleted, then I will be able to delete this particular custom key store. So if you went ahead and created a CMK, and then you'll face the very same issue that I'm facing right now, right? The deletion will fail. I will have to wait for this particular CMK to be deleted, right? And once the CMK has been deleted, then I will be able to delete the custom key store. So be careful with that operation, guys. Just don't create it, right? But since we did not create the CMK, now I can basically go ahead and disconnect the custom key store either from here or leveraging AWS CLI, right? So I'm just going to do that action from here. Remember, if you want to do it from AWS CLI, HSM user does have that permission. We did give HSM user those permissions to disconnect from AWS CLI as well. But I'm just going to keep it simple. Click on disconnect, right? So it's disconnecting. And later on, if I want, I will be able to also delete this custom key store, right? Because there is nothing that is provisioned leveraging that particular custom key store. So guys, ensure that you release all resources, right? And that's it from me today. Hopefully this hands-on lab was helpful. Do practice it. It's a pretty neat service, and do post your feedback. And I will see you later in some other tutorial. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.